Install operating systems. Before the installation process undertake, a technician must be aware of the minimum requirements of a computer hardware that is compatible with the operating system to be installed. Following the system's requirements means an efficient computer system. The list below shows the Windows XP minimum requirements for installation. Windows XP installation. Insert the Windows XP CD ROM and reboot the computer. If you see a message about press any key to boot to CD, do so now. Otherwise, you will see a message about setup inspecting your system. MS-DOS portion of setup begins. In the first stage of setup, you will see a series of blue and gray MS-DOS based screens. In the first step, you will be asked to press F6 if you need to install any third-party or RAID drivers. Welcome to Setup. Finally, Setup begins. In this step, you can set up XP, launch the recovery console, or quit. Press Enter to continue setup and it will examine your hard drives and removable disk. Read the license agreement. Next, you have to agree to Microsoft's complex licensing agreement. Among the highlights, you don't own Windows XP and you can only install it on one PC. Hit F8 to continue. Choose an installation partition. These crucial steps let you choose where to install XP. On a clean install, you will typically install to the C drive, but you might have other ideas, especially if you plan to dual boot with 9 disks. Setup will show you all your available disks and let you create and delete partitions as needed. So for example, if you have one disk but would like to create 2 partitions, one for XP and one for your data, you can do that here. Select the file system. If you created a new partition or wish to change the file system of an existing partition, you can do so in the next step. NTFS New Technology File System. File system is more secured than FAT or file allocation system. Regardless of which file system you choose, be sure to select one of the quick format options. If you do need to format, since this will work much more quickly than the full format. Optionally format the partition. If you did just to change or format the file system, this will occur next. First, you'll be asked to verify the format. If you're installing XP on a system with more than one partition, especially one that still holds your data on one of the partitions, be sure you're formatting the correct partition. Hit F8 to continue and a yellow progress bar will indicate the status of the format. When this is complete, Setup will again examine your disk and create a list of files to copy. Set up folder copy phase in Reboot. Setup will now copy system files to the system or boot partitions you just created. This will allow the PC to boot from the C drive and continue to set up in GUI mode. When the file copy is complete, Setup will initialize and save your XP configuration. It will then reboot your PC. When the system reboots, you will probably see the press any key to boot from CD message again. If this happens, do not press any key. Setup will now boot from your C drive. If you cannot prevent CD-based setup from reloading, eject the CD and reboot. Setup will ask for the CD when needed. GUI Setup begins. Once the system reboots, you will be presented with the GUI Setup phase, which is much more attractive than the DOS or DOS mode phase. As you progress through GUI Setup, you can read promotional information on the right side of the screen about XP. Next, your hardware devices are detected. This could take several minutes. Regional and language options. In the first interactive version of GUI Setup, you can choose to customize the regional and language settings that will be used by XP, as well as the text input language you'd like. Users in the United States will not normally need to change anything here. Click Next to continue. Enter your product key. Now you must enter the 25-character product key that is located in the orange sticker found at the back of the CD holder and then that came with Windows XP. You cannot install XP without a valid product key. Later, you will be asked to activate and optionally register your copy of Windows XP. A product key can be used to install XP on only one PC. Click Next to continue. Enter your computer name and administrator password. In the next phase of setup, you can create a name for your computer and optionally in Pro Edition only, a password for the system administrator, the person who controls the PC. Supply your date and time settings. Next, you can supply the date and time, which are auto-set based on information in your BIOS, and the time zone, which is irritatingly set to PST, which is where Microsoft has changed this as appropriate. Click Next to continue. Network setup. If you have network or networking card or modem setup, now install the networking components, which include the client for Microsoft Networks, file and print sharing, the quality of service, packet scheduler, and the TCP/IP networking protocol by default. Choose networking settings. In this phase, you can choose to keep the default settings. To enter custom settings, click Next to continue. Enter workgroup or domain information. In Windows XP Professional only, you will be able to select a workgroup or domain name next. Home Edition doesn't work with Windows domains. However, in Setup will automatically supply the workgroup name MS Home, which you can change later. Default workgroup name in XP Pro is Imaginatively Workgroup. Click Next to continue. Setup completion. From this point, setup will continue to completion without any further need for interaction. Setup will now copy files, complete installation, install your start menu items, register system components, save settings, remove any temporary files needed by setup, and then reboot. Again, you will probably see the press any key to boot from CD message on reboot. If this happens, do not press a key and your new XP install will boot up. You can remove the XP Setup CD now. First boot, you will be greeted by the XP splash screen on first boot. The splash screens for XP Pro and Home are subtly different. Change display settings. Users with CRT monitors and some LCDs will see a display settings dialog appear, which asks whether you'd like XP to automatically set the resolution. This will generally change this resolution from 800, 600 to 1024, 768 on a CRT monitor or to the native resolution on an LCD display. Click OK and let XP change the resolution. Then accept the settings if the screen displays changes and can be read. If you can't see the display, it will time out after 30 seconds and return to the suboptimal 800-600 resolution. Click OK to accept the screen resolution change. Welcome to Microsoft Windows. Now you are presented with XP's out-of-box experience, or OOBE, which presents a silly wizard to guide you through the final setup of your PC. Click Next to continue. Network setup. In the opening OOBE phase, you are asked to set up your network internet connection, which is required for activation and registration. If you select the default networking configuration during setup and know it will work because you're connected directly to a cable, modem, perhaps, or a local area network, then select Yes. That is the default. Otherwise, you can select No and then skip. We'll assume that your network is up and running and select Yes. Click Next to continue. Optionally activate and register Windows. If you selected Yes in the previous step, you are asked if you'd like to activate Windows XP. This will tie your copy of XP to the current PC semi-permanently. Activation requires a connection to the internet, but you can perform this step later if you want. Set up users. Now you can set up the usernames of the people who will be using the PC. You will want at least one user, since you shouldn't be logging on as an administrator. Curiously, each user do create here as administrative privileges. However, and no password. You should set up your users correctly with passwords as soon as possible. Log on to Windows XP for the first time. Click your name, that account will log on, and you'll be presented with the XP desktop. After you created passwords, however, you'll be asked to enter a password before you can log on.